Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo. We're back here with some DayZ. This is actually pre-recorded footage of me testing out my new Intel i7 4770K CPU and my wonderful Hero Maximus motherboard from ASUS, man. Finally got those upgrades. The game looks better. It runs so much smoother. I'm so happy to be playing Arma 3 on like 60 frames and DayZ on like 70 frames and running things on high. It's all glorious and it's all wonderful. But what I actually wanted to talk about today was the whole big, hubbub, everything going on with Dean Hall and with the DayZ development team, and really just discuss my thoughts on DayZ going into the future, and also sort of look back over the recent dev blog and discuss some of the things that were mentioned and featured there, and why I think what I want to be excited for anyways, and what I think we should be excited for moving into 2014 with DayZ. Now, the first big thing, of course, is Dean Hall basically saying that there's a very solid chance he's going to be leaving Bohemia as the head of the DayZ development team at the end of 2014. He's going to go back home to New Zealand. We don't know what he's going to do. He's mentioned that he wants to work on a lot of other games. He has ideas and there's games that he wants to create. He now has the money to do so, and I think that's great. I'm glad for Dean. I'm glad he's gotten to that point. I think DayZ has been a really stressful thing for him, especially the standalone with all the hype behind it, trying to eliminate that hype and make people understand, listen, this is what we're doing, it's really early alpha, and I think that's been a bit of a struggle because people can't seem to understand what alpha is. Especially, even, I guess you could say, when they slap this giant, warning logo on the front of DayZ every time you boot it up, and also on the page on Steam before you go to boot it, like, hey, listen, this is what it is. Are you prepared for this? And people are like, yeah, and then 2 minutes later on the forums, like, I lost my character. What the... And it's just... That has to be really frustrating. But in the meantime, they've been working on DayZ, and I think they've been doing a great job moving things along. One of the cool things that I took away from the recent dev blog is they're now doing these sprints, essentially. So what they do is they sit down, the whole entire team, and they focus on a bunch of core elements that they want to get to some point. We need to get zombies to this, we need to get the animation system to this, and then they grind on it, they sprint on it for 2 weeks. So that gives them this focus on what they're going to be working on, what they need to work on, and they do it for 2 weeks straight. I think that's a really great way of doing things when you have so many elements that you actually need to finish, that need to be redone, that need to be worked on, that need to be improved or implemented into the game as you move forward. And obviously they have so many of those things. It's good, I think, to focus on certain aspects. So, let's talk a little bit more about Dean Hall leaving, okay? Because for some people, this is like the end of the world. They're like super pissed, like, he's leaving at the end of 2014. I mean, number one, that's a year away from now. It's a decent amount of months away. We have some time. He's not just leaving the project in the middle of it. He does plan on helping them get the game to the point where he feels, okay, this is it. I've done what I need to do, and I think from here on out, there are still a large group of, very passionate and very... talented game developers who are going to be working on DayZ. I think a lot of people forget that Dean isn't like making the entire game by himself, It's not just him anymore. This isn't the early days of the mod, he has a lot of other people helping him make this game. There's a ton of people that have actually come out that we've learned to actually know, and on a more personal level, Senshi and Hicks and and Ivan, all the dudes from the different art departments and the different coding. There's so many people they have working on this game now. The team has grown massively, and they're all very passionate about it. There's a reason that they're there working on DayZ. It's not just, oh yeah, it's just another game I'm working on the side. No, they are passionate about DayZ standalone, and they're really excited to make the game what Dean has envisioned and probably what they have envisioned. So I don't think we need to worry ourselves too much. I do hope that someone obviously steps up to replace Dean as that creative lead, because you do need people to provide direction. When you have a team of any size, you need someone who's kind of looking at things and saying, hey, maybe if we did it this way, you just need people to help focus the direction that the game is going. So who's that going to be? That's really the big question I have. I'm really curious to see. I mean, obviously it's a long way away from now. I'm sure they haven't even thought about it. Is it going to be Hicks? Who's it going to be? Just a lot of people who are really passionate about the game, who we have seen out on Twitter and in the public. And I think any number of those people could actually, come out and, take that role, take that lead, and continue to push DayZ forward into 2015. It's going to be very interesting. I wish Dean, the best of luck and whatever he decides to do in the future. I do hope he stays in game development. I would hate to see him leave, especially now that he has the presence to basically you know, if he makes a good game, people are going to play it, and that's a great thing to have, you know, to know that, hey, I can make something really great, and I don't have to worry about how do I get it out there, you know, how do I make people know, you know what this is, how do I share it with people. He's in a good position, and I hope he takes advantage of that. But let's talk a little bit more about DayZ moving into 2014 and what they discussed in the recent dev blog, which if you haven't seen, I will have linked in the description below. It's about 20 minutes long. It's a good watch. Go check it out. It was very well put together this week. This episode, I think it's been actually a month or so since they've done the last one, but a lot of things were discussed in it that I'm very excited for. And I want to start by talking about some of the simple things. The biggest one being the animation overhaul, essentially. So what they're doing is they're stopping and they're taking a look at, you know, the way we swing axes right now, that you're going to see in this video, the way I'm holding an axe. It's this weird sort of left-handed animation. It was never finished. It's broken. And they're actually going to be fixing that. They're going to have the two-hand position proper. You guys are going to be swinging from the right. And it's just going to be easier for the player to sort of decide where the axe is actually going to land. Of course, making it very easy to defend yourself against zombies, other players, and, you know, other future threats that may be implemented into DayZ. Because right now, that left-handed swing, it doesn't make sense. Also, you can swing when you're in a relaxed position, which just means you miss all the time. That apparently is going to be gone altogether. Essentially, you're going to have to make sure you're in the ready position to swing the axe, otherwise you're not going to swing at all. I think that's very nice, because there's a lot of times when you'll catch yourself accidentally swinging while holding the axe in the sort of like, you know, rest position, and you just miss. You're just missing. It's just terrible, and the zombie hits you and you start bleeding everywhere, and it's no good. It doesn't work out in the end. So great to see them doing that. They showed off a lot of animations with other elements in the game, can opener, you know, the screwdriver, even the knife, you know, actual proper animations. They weren't done, they weren't completely polished, but they were looking very good, and they do plan on pushing those into experimental over the next couple weeks. Pretty much everything we're going to talk about here is on its way to experimental and will most likely, you know, be in public in the next couple months. So that's great, because you know, they've definitely been working hard, a lot of cool things. One of the other big things is getting their physics middleware. So they've actually went out and they've purchased, you know, software from a physics company, and they're implementing that into the game now, which means you can throw objects. This is something that Dean did say was very early on. It needs a lot of work, but again, the potential there is wonderful. I mean, you're in a firefight with a friend, you know, he's across the hallway, whip a magazine to him, he puts the magazine in his gun, you know, oh, it's just, there's so much potential there for different elements that I'm very interested to see how players will then be able to make use of it once it's in the full game. And it's nice to actually have proper physics in the game. I think it's gonna get rid of a lot of the really wonky detection with objects in the environment, you know, things falling through floors, because now you have that proper physics where the item is actually going to interact with the floor material, with the stairs, whatever it may be, like it would in real life, rather than just kind of falling to the ground all static and strange. I think it's going to improve the game massively, and it's the first time that we've ever seen that sort of a system implemented into DayZ. It was never in the mod, and it's never been in standalone, and now it's finally going to be here. Very, very, very excited for that. But one of the things that I think I'm most excited for is the improvement in lighting, because this is going to mean that a lot more people are going to want to be playing nighttime. Right now, nighttime is sort of reserved for the few. I like to play nighttime quite a bit, at least not full-on nighttime. I like to play when it's, I guess you would say, dusk, right? Dusk or dawn, I forget what it's called. One of those ones, you know, where you can kind of see the moon quite well. You don't really need a flashlight. It's fun to play like that, but I would also like to play in the dark. The issue is the lighting isn't finished, the HDR lighting isn't there. There's a lot of inconsistencies when you start actually walking around moving with a flashlight. And of course, the flashlight doesn't really properly illuminate an area. It kind of still has that cone vision, which can be a bit frustrating. So I'm really excited for that, because I do like playing at nighttime, but it is just it's extremely painful, especially when you're inside of buildings, to play with a flashlight at nighttime. It's headache inducing, searching a building like that and being like, oh my god, it's just, you have to like zoom in to get the flashlight to focus right. It's not fun, it's just frustrating, and I think that's why a lot of people avoid the nighttime, which is, to me, going to be one of the coolest parts of DayZ, is playing at night when everything comes together at the end of it all. Now, the other thing that they talked about was, of course, the hunting, which we've been hearing about for months now. You know, Dean saying, yeah, we want to get hunting in there. We want to get, you know, proper cooking and you know, actual being able to, you know, cut the animal up and gut it like you would, and make use of the materials to you know, actually eat food and create campfires and things of that nature. And they did showcase a bit of this. They also teased a bow that was work in progress. And the cool thing is the arrows are going to work the same way that they worked in the mod, which means they're actually going to stick into your target. The thing I'm interested in is to know if we'll actually be able to have a chance to recover those arrows. This is very rare. I mean, usually when you take down a deer in real life or whatever you may be hunting with a bow, you don't usually reuse the arrow. Some people do, but generally the arrow is usually damaged or broken when the deer runs and breaks it. But I would like to know if there is a small chance that we could have arrows that are recoverable. I think it would, it would just be a nice touch. Also, crafting your own arrows I think would be cool. I think this is going to be something that's a little bit more difficult, because if you ever made your own arrow in real life, it's actually it's not really complex, but you don't just take a stick, you go out and you buy a dowel, which is, as straight as you possibly can get it. So maybe if you could find wooden dowels in the supermarkets, you could then craft your own arrows. I don't really know. The potential for, arrow making and bow making I think is cool, but I know they want to keep it on a realistic level. They don't want to just be like, hey, get some string and some wood and you made a bow. That's just kind of ridiculous in my opinion. I think finding a bow would be much more appropriate, but we'll see where they decide to take it. But on the other side of that, the hunting aspect as a whole, this is something that they're obviously taking very, very seriously, and I'm very excited about that because, as I've said in the past, for me, it's the combination of all the survival elements coming together that are going to make DayZ special, You mix in the zombies, you mix in the illnesses, things like your clothes getting wet and damaging your goods, having to stay warm and stay dry. All of those elements put together are going to give you all of these different antagonists, these different enemies, and these different obstacles to overcome while doing whatever you may fancy doing in DayZ, whether that be being a bandit, or, a survivalist, seeing how long you can survive, or hunting bandits. Everything is going to be made much, much more difficult, and I think that's just going to improve the overall quality of the game massively. So mixed in with all of this is the idea of being, hunting being an active thing, something that you do on a regular basis in DayZ to gain food, rather than risking going into Cherno or Electro to try and search one of the supermarkets for spawn food. Instead, no, you're a survivalist. I'm out in the woods. Very rarely do I even go near the coast. Do I go near towns? I'm out here. I do what I can out here. That means hunting animals, gaining their food, having campfires, cooking the food, consuming the food, and then only going into town when I really need to, medical supplies and things of that nature. And that provides a whole other playstyle for people like myself who enjoy that kind of thing. I don't really care about the PvP aspect of DayZ. I think it's great that it's there. And I've definitely learned how to avoid kill on sight and things of that nature by playing extremely conservatively, and that's actually where I found my sweet spot in the game, where I like to enjoy it. Yes, I want more zombies. Yes, I want all of those things, but I think it's the combination of all those things put together. Survival aspects plus the zombies when they're right, being, making the experience. Now, he did talk about zombies. They talked about zombies a little bit, actually, and I can now understand what the issue is with getting zombies in. There is still that concern of, more zombies, really causing some issues with the frame rate inside of the game, the server side FPS as well. But the biggest issue that Dean mentioned, which completely just blew over my head this entire time, was the spawning system. You have to respawn the zombies, and with all these people running around the map, they're testing these like 100-person, 50, 70-person servers. Even with 40 people, you can't just spawn zombies anywhere and at any time, because there's a good chance you'll spawn zombies on top of a player, and that completely ruins the experience. No one wants to like wipe an entire town of zombies, make that their thing, like, we cleared out this entire town, it's ours, and then you start talking about persistent objects like barricades and tents, and you set up all these barricades and tents. Next thing you know, zombies are spawning inside your barricades. Obviously, that you can't have that. It ruins the game entirely. Dean made a point of saying, we can't have that, it's bad. And that is one of their big focuses with zombie respawning, is making sure that it doesn't break the immersion, so to speak, and that they can spawn in zombies without affecting players, without players even noticing. And then, of course, when you talk about things like actually clearing out a town, they want those zombies to then spawn on the outside of the town and, work their way in through sound or some sort of thing that attracts them. Just a lot of elements that the team has been working on to bring DayZ to the point where Dean has wanted it to be, where he's mentioned all of the different elements and concepts that he's talked about. They still have a lot of plans for the game going forward. Obviously everybody's like, a lot of people want vehicles. I'm glad to hear that they're going to be starting really small with bicycles and things of that nature, and then when they do vehicles, they're going to be a very difficult thing to get your hands on. You're actually going to, Dean mentioned spark plugs and batteries and motor parts, really having to make the vehicle from scratch, and then if things happen where it breaks, you get in an accident, you have to repair it. I like that because it's, number one, it's authentic. It's realistic, I guess you could say, and I think, again, it's just going to add to the gameplay experience. It's going to make driving a vehicle risky, it's going to be something that you have to take very seriously when you do it. You can't just plow through the fields into the off-road because there's a chance you'll damage it. You're not going to be able to take a Gaz or some car and just go off-roading with it and not have it cause some sort of extreme damage to the components of the car. So overall, a lot of cool stuff happening with DayZ in 2014. I'm very excited. I have my CPU, I have the frames now. I'm stoked to actually be able to play DayZ in more than 25 FPS, to be able to play it on higher settings, to be able to enjoy the game the way it was meant to be enjoyed in all of its wonderful, beautiful glory. And again, I wish Dean Hall a very, very good future. You know, I hope he does well in whatever he decides to do, starting a new studio. And of course, I think, you know, I'm glad to hear he's taking some time at the end of 2014 or whenever this happens, beginning of 2015, to go back home to his family. Because from what I can tell, a lot of people on the DayZ development team, and of course, you know, Dean with climbing Everest and all that crap, he hasn't been home for a while. And, you know, I don't think anybody should have to be away from their family for that long. Some people think of it as the norm, but it's your family, man, you know? And I think it's great that you get to see your family every once in a while. You know, you shouldn't really be held back from that. So I hope whatever Dean does in the future, he stays in game development, though. That's the one thing I want from him, is to know that he's going to stay in game development. He's going to continue to push forward to increase his skill and gain more experience in the world of game development, and to go forward and make great games, because he obviously has the brains, he has the vision, and I want to see him put that to paper, put that to game, and I want to be playing a game by Dean Hall, you know, in the next several years that isn't DayZ. I think it's going to be very, very exciting. Let me know your thoughts on the subject as a whole, guys. Let me know what feature they mentioned in the dev blog that you're most excited for in the comment section below. And of course, if you haven't checked out the recent dev blog, I will have it linked in the description below. It's been Tony Mo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.